PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi.
Hello everyone, my name is Svitlana and I'm a Women's International Master from Canada. I'm really looking forward to analyzing some of the best games from the women's candidates on this channel with you. So, after an eventful round 1, we saw a lot of fighting chess in round 2. And I want to share with you a really interesting game that happened between Tan Zhongyi and Vaishali Rameshbabu. And this game went from calm, positional chess all the way to a powerful attack. From what I could notice, their current score between each other was 1 win each and 1 draw. So we know we are in for a very close battle. So Tan Zhongyi was playing white here and started the game with d4, to which Vaishali replied knight f6. Now right away on move 2, we get a surprise, knight to c3. And this is surprising because Tan Zhongyi usually goes for c4, and knight c3 is not normally part of her repertoire. Now, Vaishali goes for d5 to prevent white from taking even more space with e4, and we see a Jabava London. Vaishali, playing as black, replies with one of the main lines, which involves c5 and taking on d4. And it's a bit funny that this pawn structure that we got here also arises from the exchange Caro-Kann variation, where white exchanges their e-pawn for black's c-pawn. But this is a bit different because the knight is already committed to c3, which is usually where the pawn wants to go. But still, we got this from a bit of a different move order. Now, we are still following the main line in the game, where just the knights kept getting developed, and Tan Zhongyi was playing really quickly here and went for a sideline, h3. Probably more popular would be to go for knight e5 with just some play in the center, simple from both sides, but she plays h3, preventing bishop g4 most likely. Vaishali goes for a logical continuation with the bishop on f5 and they get traded. And not only that, the second pair of bishops will get traded as well. And this is not a very popular position, but still, I noticed that another candidate that we have in this exact tournament has played this before. And this was a game from Nijat Abbasov playing as white, except his opponent went for bishop e7, and it was a slightly different game, but it was just interesting that another player from this tournament has had this position before. But in this game, Vaishali went for bishop to d6, trading another pair of bishops. White goes rook to f1, rook f to e1, just occupying a good file, and castles. Now, from what I remember, Vaishali is an attacking player who thrives in complicated positions. So maybe this was Tan Zhongyi's strategy, to keep things simple and equal out of the opening. She goes a3, a prophylactic move against any knight b4 ideas, and queen to c7 from black. Now we are entering into the middle game, where both players are trying to choose their plans. Vaishali's plan here was likely to go for b5 and b4, and this is looking very similar to some sort of a minority attack on the queen side. And likely because of this plan, white decides to go for an interesting repositioning maneuver, making the pawn structure a bit more connected with c3, so replacing that knight to a better square. Now, black is taking over their open file, and we get knight to e4 here. So because that knight left, now the black knight doesn't miss an opportunity to occupy a good central square. The queen moved away, so far we see that both knights are trying to find their ideal places here. White's knight is headed to d3 and then potentially c5 and e5, and black's knight so far is headed to stay on the queen side. And at this point, Vaishali went knight to b3. And there were two options here. As I said, basically knight to c4 was probably a bit more useful because the knight has more targets here and more rerouting opportunities just in case. But she goes knight to b3, and the difference might seem subtle now, but we will see that this knight placement is what caused a bit of problems in the future. So knight to b3, not a bad move by any means, but whites can easily defend against it, and then the knight doesn't really have any more targets from here. Still, she goes a5, knight to d3, so we get a bit of a dance of the knights in this game for this middle game, and Vaishali goes a4. So this was necessary to let the knight out of b3, or else it would not have had any chances to reposition itself to a different square. And this seems like a good plan where the knight can come here. Maybe we can start attacking b2 as a weakness, but there is a drawback to this a4 move. It's that now black's minority attack will never ever come to life because b5 and b4 is just not going to be a plan anymore, which is usually the main pawn break plan in these positions for black. But still, a4 is still a logical move. So now we see knight to e5. Finally, white's knight occupied its dream square, and black goes for that exact knight remaneuvering. So I really find it funny that the knights move so many times in this middle game, but now finally they have reached their destinations, and white has to think about whether they want to trade these knights or not, and she decides to keep the tension on. I think if they did get traded, this would be a favorable trade for black, just having a bit more room to move, but this keeps the tension on, and this was the better choice for white. Now, at this point, Vaishali plays rook f to e8, and she spent 13 minutes on this move and was down to her last 25 minutes to white's 54 minutes, which can quite quickly turn into time trouble for black here. Now, it is really instructive how Tan Zhongyi spends her next few moves improving her pieces. Let's watch it. So first, she goes queen f2, trying to free up the e-file for the rooks, and we see that both players did the same thing, putting the rooks onto the e-file. Now, black goes b6, just taking away the c5 square from the knight, and this is where it gets spicy. So far, we saw a game full of positional play and maneuvers, but now Vaishali is down to her last 15 minutes, and Tan Zhongyi goes for a serious attack. g4 here. So it seems like this attack started out of nowhere, but we're gonna see just how powerful it becomes over the next few moves. Black moves away the knight, queen h4 joins the attack, queen to d6, and knight to h5. So far it looks like there shouldn't be any problems, but white already all of a sudden has a very serious threat of going queen to g5 and knight f6, and if black does nothing, then white will already be threatening checkmate or winning material. So black finds the only defensive move here with f6, and after g5, which was well played by white, keeping the pressure on, Vaishali only has 5 minutes left on the clock and rushes a bit to close the position with f5. Instead, it would have been better to go for f takes g5, queen takes g5, and rook f7, so keeping some pressure and some counterplay on the f-file, but I will admit that this is also difficult to play for black. With so many weaknesses to take care of, with g7, e6, the pieces just feel really tied down. So in the game, f5 happened, and this was unfortunately the mistake, which Tan Zhongyi used really, really well. So now white brings even more pieces into the attack, and I really find it amazing that every single one of her pieces is participating, has its own role, and it's just a really exemplary attack at this point. The knight joins as well, and here I would say we are in the critical moment of the game. At this point, I can ask you to stop the video and try to find what you would play for white, because there's only one winning move here, so you can try to use this as your own tactic. So try to find what white should do. Okay, so if you're ready, if you found knight to f6, congratulations, you have a great tactical vision. And this is the only winning move here and the one that actually happened in the game. Other moves do not lead to such a great attack, so if we ever take or anything like this, then we just help black's pieces consolidate. If you want to go for g6, then that also doesn't work. There's no really checkmate threats here. We need to take care of our knights, and unfortunately we can't do anything like knight g6 yet because it's defended, which is why knight to f6 right away is a great move, because it threatens checkmate, and also knight to g6 is coming on the next move. And after g takes and knight to g6, black actually resigned. And there was another winning move here for white, for example, g takes f6, but I think knight g6 is a lot more straightforward. And the reason why black resigned is simply that the king has to move, and after the knight takes on e7, no matter what black takes with, there's going to be extra material for white after g takes f6. So I thought this was a really great game from white, because even though it started out very calmly, very positionally, knight maneuvers and all of that, then we saw that once we got to a critical position with critically low time for the opponent, she went straight for the attack and didn't look back. And this is a skill that a lot of us can learn from as well, to really recognize these key moments of when to put pressure. And this was one of the two decisive games this round for the women's candidates. So Tan Zhongyi taking a powerful lead with 2 out of 2. And the second winner was Alexandra Goryachkina, who defeated Anna Muzychuk today. And then we also saw 2 draws that happened between Humpy Canero and Katerina Lagno, as well as Lei Ting-jae against Nurgül Salimova. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see you soon in the future rounds. Bye-bye.